Hello YouTubers, this is Robert here from robertafrica.com, my African site, and we're here to look this time at the Garmin Fenix, a very comprehensive and yet somewhat quirky, even paradoxical piece of equipment sent to me by Garmin UK, so thanks to Charlotte Bishop there. This watch is very involved. It has a huge range of features, menus which have to be learnt. It has some quirky ones as well, including that flashlight there, and some very tight integration from Garmin's own software, and that's the base camp. Here's the delivery of the Fenix at long last. This is, I think, by far my most anticipated delivery. Fenix GPS watch. There you go. Oh, there she is in all her glory. How's that, people? 6 weeks GPS. When the GPS is on, it will go from 16 to 50 hours. That's interesting. That's the same as the Sunto Ambit. Its only direct competitor in this market space will do as well. Right from the outset I can see this is a very good looking watch, very good looking indeed. I'm touching the thing for the first time. It's quite bulky, but look, let's just check this out in context right now. People complained about the Global Trainer. This is my Global Trainer, what I own. Now this is big and chunky. I'm supposed to have large hands and small wrists. Look. This fits on my wrist okay, alright. There's only a minimal amount at the side in terms of a gap. It couldn't be any larger, but this does fit my wrist. Now, both GPS devices, by the way, of course. The Global Trainer is multisport. This is, you know, fundamentally an outdoor watch, as I've tried to explain. What we're talking about is a slightly smaller dot matrix display, roughly the same kind of technology, not quite as clear as on either the Forerunner 610 or the Forerunner 910 XT, I have to say, but then I haven't even turned the thing on as such. And of course you can see here that both watches act as watches. There's a quick start manual. Right, I said it's an outdoor watch, so anything, they say alpinists. Well, excuse me, but I'm a runner. I'm living in the city centre here. I go swimming occasionally at the gym across the street. It says charging the device, which I need to do. I like that charging clip. Each Garmin device that I've reviewed seems to have its own separate charging clip. The sexiest one I've seen is on the Forerunner 610. Okay, so it's about charging, what the keys do. Apparently one of these is programmable. That's the orange key. This thing here. Viewing the sensor data, this being an ABC watch, we're going to have a lot of stuff to review. Altitude, a barometer, compass, this also has a vibration alarm as well, and I'm hoping that there's going to be a good backlight as well. You can see how comprehensive the display is there, by the way, by the fact that it's showing a variety of information. Acquiring satellite signals. Obviously this is key to the watch operating, and that, you know, the GPS is going to be perfect for this kind of device. Going for a hike, sending your hike to base camp. So this is the first reference that I've seen, and I researched this yesterday briefly, of Garmin's base camp application. There are waypoints here, as on other GPS devices that I've looked at, and of course a pretty good compass, navigation, and that's what I really want to see. I want to see a base map. Apparently this is the first watch in the world that can show a base map. Ant Plus, okay, I needed confirmation of that. The great thing is I have an Ant Plus belt. On my Timex Global Trainer it's dead easy to put on both, like a Garmin belt, and then to sync the Garmin watch like the 610 with the Timex belt. It works so easily. We can now check out the other pieces in the box here, so I'll just pull them out as they appear. This is obviously the charging cradle. In addition to that quick start guide then the watch itself, of course, there's surprisingly little. No heart rate monitor, okay, this only is compatible with heart rate monitors. So you've got the cradle and then those plugs. They're EU and Irish only for my particular model. There's no US one. My overwhelming method of choice for recharging is a USB plug. There you can see it plugging right into the plug, so you've got that option. Also, Garmin has done their thinking here and they've got an optional power pack which even includes solar charging. So now it's time to open up the device. This is always one of my favourite moments. Foam insert. Now let's look at the physical aspects of the watch. This watch is very rugged as well as wearable, which is a good start, I think, and bodes well. Pretty heavy. Very solid looking, hard plastic. They say alloy, perhaps this is plastic coated metal then. I'm just going to test this. I can tell that's mineral glass. When I again match this with the Global Trainer, okay, it's shallower, and yet this has only a GPS heart rate monitor. This is altitude, altimeter, barometer, compass, vibration alarm. Now that's pretty damn good, isn't it? So that's what about 3 years of technology has done there. And so this is multisport, of course. This I would not count as a multisport watch. Let's see again with the weight. I would say overall very slightly lighter. Now let's see how it fits on the wrist. So this fits much the same as on with my Global Trainer. Fairly big and quite deep as well. I think overall this is a very good looking watch, very good looking indeed, and I can't wait to get into the feature set. So I'm intrigued already. What I'll do, of course, as with my other watches, is look at the feature set first, and then I'll check the GPS signal, and then it'll be time to do some workouts, which are going to be very diverse in the case of this watch. I'm now going to turn it on. There you go. Loading. So this goes in like this, apparently clips on. I prefer these two-way clips because they're very solid. Right, we're finally at 100%. Incidentally, just to be cheeky about this to Garmin, I've just plugged my Global Trainer into their charger and it works. So again, this is what it looks like when the Global Trainer is charging. Only trouble is this bar here is nowhere near as accurate as it could be. For example, I went for a run yesterday and it went from like 25% to 80% in 25 minutes. Personally, I prefer the Garmin's menu and interface for charging at the very least. Remember, charging is very, very important for GPS watches. There's your on-off button. That's like an enter button. Now the equivalent for that on the Timex Global Trainer is the one right there in the middle. Okay, whilst we're looking at the two respective watches, we can see that the quality of the display is roughly the same, but at the very least I'll give credit to Garmin for actually making this thing a watch. With the Forerunner 910 XT, the triathlon watch, It's not a watch as such. Initially, because I saw, as you can see there, there's the background to the LCD on the right there on the Fenix, that the quality of the contrast would not be that good. In fact, the quality of the contrast is really, really good. It is better than on the Ironman, and it is as good as that on the Polar, which now is like showing its age at 6 years old from like 2005, 2006 there. But the Fenix is easily a state-of-the-art LCD for displaying most of the data that the Fenix is capable of displaying. So having fired up the watch, let's look at the interface for the first time here. It's actually pretty bland. So it says the heart rate like it's expecting the heart rate, temperature there, barometer, altimeter, and the compass. So everything's in normal kind of digit format. What we're doing now is pretending to actually load the satellites like we're starting the GPS, but this is indoors. Now look at the compass. Look how it's changed. It's a real compass. Right, look how sensitive that is. It looks really, really good to me. Very accurate as well. There's the altimeter complete with graph on the bottom there. You won't be able to tell that because it's of course where static altitude, and then the data fields, all of which are configurable. The temperature there is a hybrid of the body temperature along with the outdoor temperature. What you can see there is a shortcut which I pressed to stop the GPS and then check on things like the battery strength and the signal strength of the GPS. Now when you save the track, it does that automatically when you stop the GPS, which can be annoying if you're a tester. We're now going to look at the actual meat of this device here and look firstly at the top menu, which is 10, I repeat 10 sections. As you can see, there's a setup menu which is going to be looked at in just a couple of minutes. As you can see here are all the subsections, so alerts, waypoints, tracks, routes, data fields. Shared data is an interesting one that's going to be looked at, one of the last of all. We're going to be looking at tracks here, then alerts, then data fields. Let's look at all the methods by which the tracks can be measured. As you can see here, there are like subsections. These refer to distance and time, and the good thing is that for this particular menu it shows you this below the menu title. This is important to me because there are so many menus and sub-menus in this watch. You really want to know what's going on before you delve into it. It just increases ease of use and I suppose makes it more like a smartphone. It really is the case that this kind of device needs to be well laid out. This is not necessarily the case consistently for this device, but as you can see there's an awful lot of options on display that enable this device to be worked at, which work for you in the most efficient way possible. The output formats here are important because they refer to GPX and FIT, which refer to the GPS designated modes for workouts, which again will be looked at in part 3 of this review. Now let's look at the alerts. There are 9 of them. Isn't that comprehensive? I do think that's very impressive. This was done incidentally in the local park. All of these can be signalled incidentally by vibration, by tone, or combination. I prefer the duality, I prefer both of them at the same time. Now let's look at the profiles here. These combine the data fields.
And of course mountaineering.
Right, mountaineering, and we can now see that these just, as it were, pre-configure what you can use when you're doing your workout. So there's no need, in other words, to configure it further in terms of the data fields. Here are the setup modes. There are 17 of these, I kid you not people, 17. Let's take a look here at some of the data fields available. You've got tracking and navigating. Right, so those are your 2 options, so recording stuff and then looking at stuff basically. Now can you see here that when you're doing your modes, as we saw earlier with the altimeter and the barometer, you can customize these things. You can move them up or down and then change the number of fields within them. Okay, so move up means literally change
the way the page displays in order. You've got a maximum of 3 fields per page here. You've got 4 in the Forerunner 910 XT, but the screen is much bigger. I prefer large screens myself. Now at the top it's giving you the category. You know, do you just want a huge alphabetical list, or do you want them delineated by category? It's then giving you the option of how you choose what category you're into. Right, these for me are quite obviously laid out, and I do like the way that this has been delineated. Aviation, what would be in there? But for me, my thing is fitness, because as I said, I'm a runner. Now looking at this, now admittedly I'm going to scroll down fast. You're not going to be able to read that, but here's a handy list for you from the Garmin page that was sent to me courtesy of Charlotte Bishop. Thanks, Charlotte. It's now time to look at the timekeeping features of the Fenix, which are really good, actually really good relative to other watches. Alarm, timer, stopwatch, and alt zones, which stands for world time, basically, where you choose them. These are going to be talked about just briefly later on. The timer, for example, is bog standard, very basic. It's all quite clearly laid out. The notification, as you can see there, can be in terms of tone or vibration, as with the other alerts and other things. And there it is, just counting down from a low number. And that's what it sounds like. So quite prominent, really, nice and loud. You'd be able to hear that in the outdoors. Now let's take a quick look at the alarms. The annoying thing is that the stopwatch is nothing much to read home about at all. Nothing. Can you see how clearly the alarms are labelled there? This is what I like. I don't know how many alarms there are on this thing. It doesn't tell me. To set them is actually quite easy. You go up and down with the buttons. You have to move them across with that big orange button there. So it's all kind of like wizard based, you know. Here you go, here are your steps, and there's no kind of easy way to get back. You see that lower left button there that I'm going to be pressing every now and then? That's to just get back to the previous screen, but there's no universal back button like there would be on the Polar RS800 or the Timex Global Trainer. Nevertheless, I've just entered an alarm time there, and see again it's clearly laid out on Monday to Friday, and it's got tone and vibrate alerts added. I'm now about to add another alarm, and the following happens. So that goes off, and then there's a snooze function available as well. So I mean, it's all very easy to use, very straightforward. The stopwatch, however, is rubbish. Please don't buy this for the stopwatch, people. It's not worth it. So from the time mode, we can look at the stopwatch mode, which, as I said, is nothing to write about, does basic laps, and that's about it. The time zone mode is more interesting because it shows zones which seem to go directly east from where I am, so Europe, and then it goes further east, like into South Africa. I find that an interesting part of the functionality. It's easy to navigate, in other words. Let's look at the rest of the setup menu here. Now there are 17 modes, 17 of them, but they are easy to look at, and the incredible thing is that even they can be reconfigured, in other words, put back in order. We've seen a lot of these functions already. The tracks are good to look at. So are the units, they're imperial and metric, but for each metric, that's very consoling, because people like me, for example, deal normally in imperial matters, but then might do like 5Ks and 10Ks. The geocaches would pertain to something like, for example, Garmin's Chirp. Now the hotkeys are interesting because they can be programmed, the two ones on the side, for example, as you can see on the bottom there, even a flashlight. I really like that kind of level of functionality there. This is at home here, and looking at the sensors and just the way that they can be configured. Of course, like I said, this is an ABC watch, altimeter, barometer, compass. For me, I felt more of a need to configure the altimeter than anything else. When it says mode on demand, by the way, you can either do it only when needed or do it continuously should you need to. Again, all these data can be looked at both on the watch and then later on in this review, probably in part 3 actually, in sites like Garmin Connect and especially Basecamp. Anyway, here's the altimeter. Now this does need to be calibrated because of air pressure. It works via air pressure, and the barometric plot is variable, so is the elevation plot. and you can choose, in other words, whether to calibrate it according to whether you're actually going to be moving around or not. I found this particular mode here, enter correct elevation, essential, and this will be demonstrated further when I do the mountain workout. I've already said that I like the time format of the Fenix, and this is no exaggeration. The options here are pretty staggering actually. You can see here that there are options available for the date. That's a bit garish for me. That is just right actually. And there's one here of course, which is okay. You now see multiple options for displaying the seconds. This is on the outside bezel there. That's even done at random. I'm not joking, it's building up as you can see there as the seconds go by. In addition, you've got the data, as you can see at the bottom there, you've got both battery strength and the sunrise and sunset data. That's really something. I like that. The very last option, I'm pleased to say, in the setup menu is the actual option to move and alter the settings, and again there's the firmware section which does need to be talked about later. Thanks for sticking with this so far. In part 2 there's a whole range of field tests with every part of the watch tested, and then we've got the computer connectivity. Please check it out.